Welcome back to Naked Folk. I'm your host, Haley Folk, and in today's episode, we're speaking with Margo Renate. She is a photographer, an intimacy coordinator, an artist, and we are speaking all about unicorn culture. We're talking about how to become a unicorn, what a unicorn is, how to properly and ethically unicorn hunt, and more. So if you're interested in hearing the conversation, just stay tuned. Are you ready to get naked? Welcome back to Naked Folk. We have Margo again today. I'm so excited that you're here. This is so random and serendipitous, and like everything else in your life, I think it fits in.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming. I feel like we should just kick it off.
Yeah.
I feel like what we were talking about before it started would have kicked us off really well,
Yes.
which is that we're going to be talking about unicorns.
And unicorn hunting.
Yes, unicorn hunting, unicorn etiquette.
Yes.
And unicorn culture. I'm coining it. It is a culture, though.
It is. And, I feel like I oftentimes get referenced to as a professional unicorn or introduced that way, which I don't necessarily claim that for myself, but I'm like, sure, in some sense, yes, I have.
You have dabbled.
That art.
You have dabbled in unicorn behavior.
Yes, in unicorn and in unicorn hunting.
Yeah.
Not super successfully, but
That's why we have to talk about it, because most people aren't successful, like myself included. It's hard.
It's hard.
If you don't know what unicorn is, maybe, do you want to define it for people who don't know?
A unicorn is a third in a couple, a third in a relationship.
Or like, it's like viewed as this magical person that's there to fulfill one or two purposes. Generally sex, sometimes more. I feel like it can evolve to be more.
Yes, definitely. As an addition to an already functioning couple.
Yeah. And generally those people are non-monogamous. Generally. But you said sometimes monogamous.
Sometimes they're monogamous, or like they're monogamous except for the exploration that they want to have with said unicorn.
Yes.
Like that's their one open area in their relationship.
Yeah. And a unicorn can be anyone. It doesn't have to just be a woman.
No.
To clarify.
No, definitely not. Although I think most commonly.
There are women.
Most commonly.
Yes. It's funny because on dating apps, like, for people who don't know what it is, and you find a woman and she has a unicorn emoji and that's it as her bio, I love that. I love it so much.
She said, no words needed.
No. just unicorns and vibes.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's all.
And a really hot photo. That's usually.
Okay, this is an important thing, because I think the first thing, if you're a couple seeking a unicorn, the first question is, how do I find this person?
Yeah, and then after that, I think it's like, what really is this person doing for us?
Yes. Oh.
How do they fit in?
Should we start with that? Like,
Yeah.
how you even talk about that if you're in a couplehood?
Like maybe we should talk about the idea of bringing a unicorn in, presenting it to your partner, and what that can look like.
Ooh, yeah.
I know that's like a lot, but
And I would say, honestly, like in my Instagram DMs, I get asked about that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Someone in a couple will come in, sometimes from an anonymous account. I've gotten a lot of messages about this on OnlyFans too, where people want to be anonymous, and they're like, hey, I'm in a couple, or I have a partner, we've been monogamous up until this point, or maybe they've, loosely played outside of that, but they're like, I really want to experiment with a third person, either just sexually or in our relationship altogether, and how do I have that conversation with my significant other? Like, that question comes up so much. Have you had that conversation with someone before?
Oh, I've had that conversation many times before, and I feel like my first experience having the conversation was really bad. It was with my ex-husband, and it was just not. We were open, but we were open for the wrong reasons. Like, he was only saying he was open because I wanted to be open, and then when you approach someone and saying, I want to bring them into our relationship in a unicorn way, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not going to be, they're not going to want to do it. And to be clear, everyone in the relationship should want a unicorn.
Yeah.
Like, I think if one person wants it and the other doesn't, it's never going to work. It's going to be really messy.
100%.
I've also, in my current partnership, we've had it many times and it's great. And it always ends up nice because we're on the same page.
Yeah.
But it's definitely starting it if you're like in the very first beginning stages and you haven't even talked at all with your partner about it. I feel like tiptoeing into it feels natural, like that you shouldn't say right out like I want this or that. But I think what helps is fantasy. Talking about it in a fantasy perspective and then maybe evolving from the fantasy helps.
Yeah, I love that. I think you don't need to go all in 1,000%, like, hey, this is something that I want, this is a deal breaker, or this is an ultimatum, if you're not going to give me this, I'm going to walk away, but just suggesting it, or even having the conversation of like, is this something you've ever thought about?
Yeah, or like,
how do you feel about this? You could even paint it in a hypothetical sense, or bring up friends or theoretical friends that you have that may have experimented in this way, and get like at least a little bit of a temperature check in terms of where your partner's at with even thinking about it.
Yeah, and then when you know the temperature, you can say, well, I really like this, or I have thought about doing this. How would you feel if we pursued that in a real sense?
Yeah.
It's not easy, like, at first, especially if you're with a partner who is maybe closed off sexually or just communication-wise, but I think it can be really healthy.
Yeah, and I think also, like what you said in the beginning, checking in with yourself in terms of why do you want to bring this into the relationship, or why do you want to have this exploration? I know for me in the past, being a bisexual woman, and I don't love the way that I went about this with past partners. I was like in college at this time, and I wasn't as evolved as I am now. But for me, it felt very important for me to continue to explore my sexuality, and I didn't want to lose the partnership that I had with said boyfriend. So that, like, at that time, there's been different times and reasons why I've dabbled in having a unicorn in the relationship, but I know that has been a consistent one for me, is like connecting with women sexually and also emotionally is an important part of me being embodied in my sexuality and in my work and in my fullest expression. Instead of being like, oh, I think this is going to save the relationship, or I actually don't like my partner and the only way I'm going to get turned on in the bedroom is if we bring someone else there, or whatever it is.
Which that is the trope of unicorns. Like, that is what people think generally in society about unicorns, is that they are there to save the relationship. I know personally friends who have been in those experiences as unicorns, and that was the couple's reason. And I don't think, one, that's healthy, and two, it will never last between the couple and the unicorn.
Yeah. And I think just as much as it's important for the individual in the relationship who's trying to move into this space with their partner, or a couplehood where both partners are like in agreement and they want to do this and they're checking in on why and what their intention is for it. As a unicorn, it's also important to check in for yourself. Like, why do I want to step into this couple's bedroom or this couple's relationship? Like, does it come from a place of fear, or a fear around intimacy? I know that that's been true for me in the past, of being like, well, it's a safe way to make sure that no one's going to try and marry me at the end of whatever this experience is, right? And then there's also been places of higher integrity where it's like, oh, I want to experience shared love in this way, or an act of service of I love and care about these people and they want to have an experience with a third person, and I can show up in a way with really high integrity and help facilitate this beautiful experience for them. Or it's a sexual fantasy for me, or whatever it is.
It can be so many things, but I think it can be really healthy. That's like, if you know your intention. If you enter in as a unicorn and you're really unsure, or you just feel like the vibes are off, or like something is telling you that maybe you're not ready for that experience, then you shouldn't do it.
Yeah. And transparency and communication across the board about intention makes it so powerful too. I've had numerous situations with couples where we sit down and have a conversation around fears, desires, and boundaries. And it just, everyone gets to lay it out on the line, and even further back than that, intention. Everyone gets to lay it out on the line. It's like, this is what's coming up for me, this is what I'm desiring, this is what I don't want, and this is the reason why I even want to show up here in the first place. And having a conversation like that, where all three of you can lay it all out, that sets a really, really beautiful foundation. And of course, things can still go wrong and people can still get their feelings hurt.
Of course.
And that's just part of human connection and relationships and
human
love.
nature.
Yeah.
when you have these conversations, like, because in my experience, it's usually been initiated online, like the relationship in general.
Okay.
And then you might have a conversation later in person, but that doesn't always happen. I have been in situations where that absolutely doesn't happen, and only one person talks to you in the couple and not necessarily the other.
That,
Which
I
is,
hate that.
Yeah, I hate it too. I think, I also think, like, okay, do you know the app Field?
Yes, I was going to say,
Okay,
we should talk about where the unicorn hunting grounds, where you can go.
Yes. So Field, I love. I think that it has some work to do in terms of like interface, but the actual, which I know someone that
critique the software of the app.
Well, I know someone that works there,
Okay.
and she agrees with me
Okay.
that there's like work to be
You
done.
need to interview her.
Yeah, I'm going to.
Okay, yeah, I love that.
She's going to be on, which is really cool. But what I love about the app is that you can tag your partner on your profile. Yeah. So when you're like talking to a guy, for example, you can trust as a woman that their partner knows that they're on.
Yes.
Like that was another thing that I came across, is that sometimes there would be situations where one partner was not maybe divulging the information that they were looking for a unicorn. Yeah. That's not cool. That's not right with me. But I like that you can talk to them and you can have a group chat on Field initially.
Yeah, that feels super important. And it's cool that apps like Field do exist to find this kind of things. I really do find that a lot of people are like, where do I go? How do I go about finding, like, my partner and I want to explore, or even if it's a single person being like, I really want to explore being a part of a couple. Field is a really great resource. Again, the app itself is a little...
Well, okay. As a woman, here has been my experience with Field. Kyle, my partner, had the app for a while. I didn't really know about it. He told me about it. He had like not that many likes on it, and he was paying for it. Okay. I got on the app, and like I think that when a woman enters into the app, it like... Every woman has told me on Field that they just have so many likes. I had like 700 likes in a day. There's no way that I could ever.
You can't go through that.
It's like overwhelming. So the first day I'm like, I don't want to look at this. Yeah. Eventually I figured out a system on like who I could find to talk to, because I'm pretty picky, I feel. So like it took me a while to go through. Yeah. But like the difference in men and women's experience on the app is interesting. But I will say there's so many people looking for so many things, and they're saying in their bio what they're looking for, which is nice too.
Yes, being upfront about it, being clear, and that way no one wastes their time, especially on an app that can be, especially if you are a woman on there. I mean, for me, I actually haven't had too many experiences through Field. I think part of that is because I show up online very open about who I am and the kind of space I take up and the kind of relationships I have. So I do get people sliding into my DMs. I also am in a lot of spaces in real life that are poly friendly or kink friendly or unicorn hunting ground friendly, and have tended to meet people just like in a party situation or at an event or a gathering or through Instagram. So I haven't had, or like through friends from college. Like there's been a lot of layers that I've attracted a lot of these situations into my life. And I think I am the exception and I am the anomaly in that. And Field is usually the first thing that I recommend to people. I haven't necessarily had a lot of experiences because I found it to be really overwhelming, and I was never on Field partnered with a significant other. I've always showed up there as a single woman, and holy it's a lot. Yeah. But I would say that's like step one. And another step is also hiring a sex worker. Yeah. Because some people, maybe they want like a one-off unicorn experience where it's just like one night of...
Yeah, and then never happens again, maybe.
Yeah, and I'm like, if you really, really want to have the experience of a threesome, I think I feel like the unicorn thing is we're sought after to be a little more long-term. I think there's usually a little more depth to the relationship.
I would say so.
Yeah.
I feel like even if it means that you see that person 2 or 3 times a month and like it's not outside of the bedroom, that's still considered like a longer term
situation.
Yeah.
And I think some people, again, getting clear on your intention, it's like, is it just a one-night experience that you're looking for? And if you are, if you're not finding that in like the typical unicorn type, you can also hire a facilitator or a sex worker to have this experience.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. That's actually a beautiful thing. It sets a lot of great boundaries. It makes things very clear for people.
There's maybe not jealousy involved in the same way. If jealousy is something that one person, jealousy is a natural human emotion. We all get jealous.
Yeah.
Jealousy in a unicorn setting can be really messy.
Yeah, been there.
Yeah, it's just if you don't have clear communication in the beginning, nothing is going to work out. And even if you did have clear communication, someone can still get jealous.
Yeah, you can get triggered. You can get jealous.
It's fine.
Something can be set off in you. Like that's what's beautiful about experiencing these more unconventional relationships is you're constantly getting to know yourself even more deeply and figuring out where your pain points are, where your wounds are, things that cause you to feel deeply, even if it's in a painful way.
Yeah.
You know?
You were saying recently that you went to Burning Man.
I did go to Burning Man.
And you had a unicorn situation.
I did have a unicorn situation. I did have a unicorn situation. And it was really fascinating because how do I want to talk about this? What point do I want to make with this? You can cut this out. This is me thinking out loud. My unicorn situation at Burning Man was healing for me on many, many, many levels because I was acknowledged and recognized for showing up as a third in a way that in a good way with integrity and love and respect for the already existing relationship. And as someone who, when I was in a partnership, experienced the opposite of that in a situation where we brought a unicorn or a third into our relationship, I was just like, oh, I'm showing up as the woman that I wish would have showed up for me when I was in this situation, but on the side of being in the couple most recently.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I've had a fair number, sorry mom, of showing up as a third in other relationships in the last 2 years since leaving my marriage. But this one that I experienced at Burning Man felt like this full circle, beautiful healing moment because as I was entering this dynamic, there was also another person that was bonding with one of the partners in the couple and was showing up in a way that felt very hurtful to the one that she wasn't bonding with. And yeah, I got to hold a lot of space around that, and I got to be acknowledged for how I was showing up and how I was being considerate for their relationship and their love, and feeling just like honored and excited to even get to be a part of it. And it also, I mean, there's so many things I could say about how amazing it is to get to show up as a unicorn and how healing and wonderful it's been. But I got a really beautiful glimpse at what I hope and what I do believe now is possible for myself in the future when I'm partnered in that way again.
If you were to have a unicorn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to have like a partner where we have a degree of openness.
Yeah.
And being like, oh, what could this look like when we bring a third in? Because I had done that in my last relationship, and it caused so much pain, and there was a lot of betrayal and grief there, and yeah, there's still a lot of wounding there for me. To get to show up as that person and be a part of a relationship where they handled it so beautifully and had these amazing conversations with me, and I watched how they maneuvered their dynamic, and with me showing up the way I did, it was just like, oh, fuck, it's possible for it to look like this and be this way.
It can be so healing and healthy. I think when there is a solid foundation of love and trust and communication in a couple, and then you come in as a unicorn, it's like, wow, this is possible. I could be, if I want to be in a partnered situation, I could find a partner that would treat me like this and be accepting of the fact that I want a unicorn.
Yeah.
Or a third.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really, it was profound. It was beautiful. And we had this, you know, crazy week at Burning Man, and I'm also like, yeah, and these people are going to be in my life for a long time. Even though and I've had this before in the past too, where it's like, I'm a part of a couple in a certain way, and our dynamic looks one way, and then over time it changes and it evolves, and there's still love there, there's still respect there, there's still so many memories, and I get to keep loving these people in new and different containers.
I think we should focus on etiquette of being a unicorn.
Yes.
How to approach a couple if you're interested in being their unicorn. And let's maybe focus it on real life instead of an app.
Okay, I like that.
Because I think apps can be
Yeah.
tricky, and it's always different.
Yeah.
But real life, like if you've been in a situation where you see a couple and you're into them, how do you approach them?
I will say that I am normally the one who gets approached by said couple.
Why am I not surprised?
Oh my God. Although my Burning Man experience was a little bit of an exception, I actually started connecting with the husband,
Okay.
which is also rare for me because men, I'm typically like, it takes a lot for me to even begin to become interested. But there was just, him and I just had chemistry, and it was felt between the two of us. And I immediately asked, I was like, okay, so what is the agreement that you have with your wife? What is the dynamic of your relationship? What is the degree of openness you have? How do you operate in these realms? And he was like, just immediately like, we do this, we're like this is how it looks. These are some of the relationships we have open right now. This is what our agreement is for Burning Man, and this is where we're at. And then he was like, I'm going to check with my wife in terms of like what we're feeling right now, what she's feeling, where her interest is. And it turned out she was also interested in me. I wasn't feeling that from her. So her and I had a whole conversation about that. And she was like, well, you know, I'm kind of used to him just I'll point to someone I want, and he will do the work and bring them back.
Nice. That's nice.
It's amazing, but I was like, I need more than that.
Yeah.
I was like, I again, my Leo ass was like, I need to feel that you want me and desire me, because I'm not interested in anything performative.
Yeah.
And I also want to be adored and cherished and given attention to.
Yeah.
Those are my needs. And yeah, it was a really powerful conversation. She was like, wow, this is making me really look at my own shit and how I'm showing up in terms of how I've gotten lazy or just like relaxed in terms of like, oh yeah, he does all the work and I just wait for him to bring like the prize home.
Yeah.
Type shit.
So interesting.
So then her and I had a whole shift, and the dynamic changed, and it was really, yeah, it was beautiful and really fun for all of us. So that's sort of been my one experience of me kind of being the one to make it happen, sort of.
Yeah, and I think like the etiquette component you've spoken is like ask questions.
Yeah.
Be firm in your intentions and what you need as well.
I
think also do not forget what you need. Like don't put your own thing aside just because a couple is like, oh, I want this instead.
Yes.
That is how you get lost in
the sauce.
Yes.
That is the unicorn sauce.
The unicorn sauce. The rainbow, I don't know what you want to call it, the sprinkles.
Lost in the unicorn sprinkles.
Yeah, I mean,
it's real though.
It's very easy to get lost though. Like I have friends who have been in throuple situations, which were like started out as unicorn, turned into throuple, and they just lose themselves in it because they don't actually know who they are, what they want.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you don't know those things, then you should not partake.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah. And I think in general, in terms of approaching a couple as if you're doing it as the unicorn, is just straightforward honesty and acceptance for whatever their response is to you.
Yeah. I had a situation recently where it was less like a conversation about, hey, do you want to join us? But more like just the act, because I was at a sex party and this person was watching Kyle and I be together, and she was just like, you know, you could tell there was
context matters too, right? If you're at a play party like that, it's like,
if you're at a play party maybe just give someone a glance and
Yeah.
then like kind of invite them over and see what happens. That's what happened. And she asked like a consent question of some sort, and I was like, yes, cool. We're friends now. That's nice.
Yeah.
But if you're like out in the world and you're at a coffee shop and you meet this couple and you start talking to them, like,
Yeah.
maybe you shouldn't ask for consent in that way.
What about as the unicorn hunters?
Okay, as the
unicorn.
yes, as the unicorn hunters, as someone who has been approached, I do not like when it is overly aggressive. Like, for example, if a man approaches me, it's specifically men.
Yeah.
If a man approaches me and he's like, I want to do this to you and my wife wants to be there, but it's not in like a nice conversation, it's more like, this is what we're looking for and you're like the perfect body for it, something like that.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel right to me. No. I want it to be emotionally connected. I want it to feel like we're actually going to enjoy our time together. I don't want to go on a double date or like as a third on a date with someone if they're just looking for sex. Like, I still want connection there.
And again, my comment to that is like, for the unicorn hunters, it's like, if that's what you're looking for, make sure, like, for something that is completely not emotionally attached, talk to the other person about that. And if you're not finding it, hire a sex worker for that experience, please.
So recently on Field, there's just a lot of couples, and there's all variations of couples, different genders, different backgrounds, and I have found that there's like this trope of people looking for unicorns that have very specific photos, and they're always like shirtless men and like a woman with her butt showing. Like, I don't know, it's some variation of like no head and just like their bodies. And some people like that. Some people are into that and think that's sexy, but I generally would love to like see someone's face.
Yeah.
as well.
Like, I want a little at this stage in my life and in this chapter that I'm in, I definitely want more. Like the experience of like having a threesome that's not a novelty for me anymore. Like, it's not something that I'm like, oh my God, I definitely want more. And that's okay.
Recently, I was at dinner with someone that was on the podcast last week and her partner, and Kyle and I went to dinner with them, and we started talking. She asked me a very interesting question. She said, do you identify as open or swingers? Very interesting question. And
swingers just feels like a term from the 80s.
Do not like that term.
I'm like,
I don't. I'm like, it feels old. It feels like when you think of a swinger, you think of a very specific type of couple.
Yes.
Not someone that is like young necessarily.
Yeah.
And like in different settings, I feel like people who are looking for unicorns are like, yeah, we're swingers. And like, that's fine. Yeah. But it was like, I had an adversity to that. And so did Kyle. He was like, no, we're not swingers. But we will happily engage with other couples together or like a third.
Yeah. That term is just so ridiculous.
Yeah, it is ridiculous.
It's not even one that I want to reclaim. I just want to leave it.
Yeah, it's funny.
Don't.
It's funny because my granny has a story of like these neighbors that she used to have who all invited them over for board games and like cocktails, and they turned out to be swingers, quote unquote, in her like. And she's like so innocent and sweet. So now every time I think of swingers, I just think of that and how she like ran out of the house like, we're leaving.
Another thing that I've seen is when you are the unicorn being hunted is couples thinking that it's like them basically planning their attack while you're literally sitting next to them.
Oh.
Or like on the dance floor next to them or whatever. And I'm like, I am within earshot and you're planning on how to I had this on the dance floor recently where I literally heard the guy was like, you want to make that happen? And she was like, yeah, I do. And he was like, okay, I'll follow your lead. And I was like, that's interesting. And then they both come on either side of me and start dancing, like sandwiching me in the middle. And I'm like,
you're like,
I'm a foot away from you. Like, I genuinely thought they were talking about someone else because I was like, I could literally hear you, and started like dancing all up on me and getting all close to me. And I was like, I don't know you. I've never seen you before. I haven't made eye contact with either one of you all night long. Like, what?
Have some respect, like, in that way.
Yeah,
like,
just, like,
also
approach
decency,
me.
like common decency.
Even, would you like to dance with us?
Yeah.
Would have been wonderful. I would have probably said no, but at least that gives me
The option.
That's consent, right?
Yeah.
In the first place. I'm like, just because we're on this like sexy, sweaty dance floor doesn't mean I want to be sandwiched in between the two of you. And they were both hot, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but I was like,
The approach was
whoa.
wrong.
Yeah, their approach was totally wrong.
I think when it comes to approach to as someone in a couple, I think that, like, so my partner specifically, he's nervous to make women feel uncomfortable.
Fair. As
So,
he should be.
yes. I mean, he's like
Love
so
that.
respectful.
Yeah.
And I am also nervous about that, but we navigate that together, and we navigate it by asking questions and asking for consent.
Yeah.
And also being really open to the fact that we don't have expectations. Because I think couples can have expectations, like you're saying, and then you're like, maybe I don't want to be a part of your sandwich.
Yeah. I'm good. I'm good on the sandwich. Yeah, I think that's super important and beautiful. The expectation things is a big one, especially because you're two coming towards
Yeah.
one, right? So it's like there's already, I think, acknowledging the fact that there is a power dynamic and a power imbalance usually from the beginning, because it's not that you're two against one, but it is two in one. And I've definitely struggled with that on the unicorn side of things, of being scared to say no, being worried about disappointment. And a lot of that is like people pleasing and good girl programming. And this is bigger than all of the unicorn stuff. But I think as a couple, having that, acknowledging that those things are likely going to exist, especially if the unicorn being hunted as a woman, it's like there is all this programming that they're already going to be dealing with. And so to proceed lightly and with caution and with care and with consideration for all of those little nuances and different layered complications that might stop someone from saying no or standing up for themselves or speaking their needs or saying what they really want.
Yeah, because I've seen far too many couples approach it the opposite way, and that doesn't work.
No.
I mean, it doesn't work for me, and I've heard my friends who've had similar experiences, it never works for them because they ultimately feel like they're not heard or seen in the relationship.
Yeah.
Even if it's like a one-night thing.
Yeah. It's a decision you're all making together, and you should all be interviewing, not so formally, but you know what I mean? You're all testing to see, like, is this a match? Like, no one needs to jump into something because of a scarcity mindset.
It is
thing.
like dating.
Yes.
In the same way that if you go on a date with someone and you don't like how they chew and it bothers you and you're like, okay, I can't handle this.
Yeah.
Similar, like you could go to drinks with a unicorn and maybe it's not a fit for your partner.
Yeah.
Like you can talk about it later with your partner and ask them, how did you feel about this? Did it feel like the chemistry was there, the attraction? Do you feel like they matched our needs?
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
When you have been in a unicorn situation, do you feel like
In the couple or as the unicorn?
either?
Okay.
Do you feel like there's been like a script that you follow, or is it always different? Like, do you have a script of questions you would have asked your ex-husband about someone if you were thinking about bringing them in?
I don't, but I do feel that going forward, if and when I find myself in a partnered polyamorous chapter in my life, or relationship dynamic, because I've been single poly for the last 2 years, and I am honestly at this point in my life open to a partner where there is consistency, devotion, and commitment. And commitment for me doesn't mean monogamy, obviously, but it means a lot of other things. I do think that if and when that I'm in that again, I will follow a script that
And maybe not a script, but like
not a script, but I do think that I will be a lot more intentional with how I have the conversations with my partner and the questions that I'm going to ask, and the needs and desires and fears that I'm going to speak to from the very beginning.
Yeah.
100%.
Something that I personally do that I really love is a check-in process. So like I will check in with my partner when I first start talking to someone, when we potentially might be going on a date with them, before any sexual acts happen, during sex. Like those check-ins are not just for me and my own sanity, they're also for him and the person that's involved.
Yeah.
And it's not a script, it's just like, hey, how are you? How are you feeling about this? And those little moments can help someone if they're feeling like they can't maybe speak on their own because they're worried about, oh, my partner's really enjoying this, so maybe I'll just like stick around because they are, but maybe I'm not.
Yeah.
And it helps with those things.
I do feel like I have locked in somewhat of a script in terms of being the unicorn, though.
Yeah.
And that's the like fears, desires, and boundaries thing. That's the what degree of openness do you have in your relationship? Do you have experience having a third or being with unicorn or experimenting with any level of openness before? How do you see, what do you see this looking like in the future? What are your intentions with me? And usually like a sexual health element as well of just like, where are we at in terms of protection, important. Getting tested, blah, 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 blah. Are there other partners in the field? Just like getting a general idea of that. And that's been, and another one that I have started asking too is how do you want to feel in the experience? Like asking each partner, like, how do you want to feel in this? Not even just when we're engaging sexually, but in general, like, because then I can help with that. Even again with the Burning Man couple, we talked about wounding that we had. The woman in the partnership had an exclusion wound, and I have a bit of a triangulation and abandonment wound, and it was really beautiful to expose those vulnerabilities to each other from the beginning, because then throughout the week, I got to make an effort to make sure that if there were moments where I was like, I feel like her exclusion wound could be coming up. Let me reach out and grab her hand. Let me make sure I have a conversation with her. Let me hang back and tag along with her, or let me seek her out in the crowd, right? It's like you get to, and that's love, and that's showing up with integrity in a situation and human connection.
And ideally, that's what you want for every relationship, even if it's not long term, even if it's, short.
Even if it's for a week.
Yeah.
Or a weekend or a night.
It also speaks to your intentions with yourself and your love for yourself and the way that you show up in the world.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm proud of myself.
I'm proud of you too. I feel like I've watched your journey, and I've watched your journey. I found you on TikTok, like a thirst trap something, but it was like a relatable thirst trap. It was like about an ex-husband bisexuality thing that so it appeared on my page for a reason. Yeah. I related. And now I think it's been 2 years since that.
It has been, almost 2 years. And it's, am I allowed to cuss on this? I don't know, we'll bleep it out.
Oh, yeah. Cuss all you want.
It's been, and now we're here. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm like, and every single moment of that journey of moving through that pain and that process and that relationship and all the highs and lows of it brought me to this couch sitting here with you right now having these really important conversations where that, and like this is me healing also, being able to even speak on this shit and inspire people to show up in a good way.
Yeah, I think so too. And for me, it's continually helpful to have conversations like this, because we are unlearning things from our past. And I am continually unlearning, this is bad, this is wrong, you should not do this as a woman, you are a bad partner, you are not meant to be a wife if you want these things. And that's just not true. That's not true. You can want anything that you want, and as long as your partner is cool with it and you talk about it, cool. Period. As long as you're not harming people, cool. So if you want to be a unicorn, go do it. Live your best sprinkle life.
Yeah, do that shit.
And if you are looking for a third and a unicorn, do it respectfully, read the room, and be kind. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming and talking about your unicorn business.
I'm glad that this was present for both of us. It feels like, I feel like I just processed a whole thing that needed to be spoken on. Yeah. Amazing.
Okay, as always, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Margo Renate, MargoRenate.
Yes.
You can find me on OnlyFans, although I'm not sure for how much longer, because I think I'm going to be leaving the space. I
Okay.
think my time has come. It's been 3 years. But if you want to catch the last era of my epic nature nudes, I'm on OnlyFans at Mermaid Void.
All right.
And you can also find me on TikTok
Yeah.
at Margo Renate _,
Yes.
I believe. So I think
that's it. Yeah.
I'm not on there a lot, but every once in
Yeah,
a while
but then
I
you
pop back on.
emerge. You
I
emerge.
emerge.
Like you appear for like a week and you put out like 50 videos and then you're gone forever. No, for 3 months and
For
then you
3
come
months
back.
and then I come back again.
Yeah.
You can also find my writing on Substack.
Yes, which is all in the link in your bio.
Yeah, you can find
on
you
Instagram.
just find my Instagram and you'll find the rest. It'll
Yeah.
lead you to all the right places.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.